Hey everybody, John Stewart here. How are you? Thank you for clicking on this. Got some very interesting information. I hope I can muddle it through with everybody. You'll have to forgive me. I'm going to edit this as best I can so you won't see me fumbling. I've had just a really hard time with technology and just printing out simple emails or, a simple page that was emailed to me and just printing it out in the regular format, 8 by 10. Technology really is very frustrating sometimes. So I'm in a really bad mood. So bear with me. But we have been researching the Linda Moulton Howe manual that came out, the SOM manual, the extraterrestrial recovery manual that she brought out years ago. And specifically, there is a really interesting page in there. It's almost like a table where and what you should do with material recovered at an extraterrestrial crash site, whether that material would be, metallurgic or biologic. And one line in particular really struck me was where to take living biological creatures that were recovered from the crash site. And as you see here, it says OPNAC BBS 01. OPNAC is Operational Naval Command. We pretty much feel that we have figured that one out. But the BBS is bizarre. We can't find that anywhere. Now, this we think was written in the 50s or 60s, this manual. So really the only thing BBS has going back to in the military is the bulletin board system, which was kind of like a early form of the internet for the military. Now, if you recovered an ET, were you supposed to put it on this top secret bulletin board? I don't even know if it was top secret that, hey, we recovered this. Where should we take it? But I don't believe that, to be honest with you. It was specifically, the BBS 01 was specifically a facility that's the procedure that you would follow, where you would take these creatures to. I would think that the BBS would somehow stand for Biological Biotechnology Services. We found that in a Devron article. Devron is a arm of the Army. One of the centers or departments is this biological and biotechnical sciences, but that's not a building. Every one of these places or these abbreviations on this list designates a building. The Wright Pat, the blue building at Wright Pat, Area 51, so on and so forth, Kirkland Air Force Base, which we know so much about thanks to Richard Doty. So I've been wondering about this BBS for years, actually. And then I saw an email, and about a year later, I shot up in bed and I'm like, wait a minute. And the alleged project manager of Project Aquarius, which was all things contact human Homo sapiens with extraterrestrials, that was the umbrella project called Aquarius. And a man wrote an email to the owner of a website, Bible Apocalypse. His name was Major Thomas Mack. And I don't know how Bible Apocalypse got a hold of this man, but the man wrote a very intelligently worded email that said, yes, I was the program manager for Project Aquarius from the 60s into the 70s, or the 70s into the early 90s. He said that he worked with J-Rod. He knew Danny Crane, a.k.a. Dan Burrish. Rick Doty was our counterintelligence person. If it was a hoax, I would be shocked. He also gave a picture of himself, or his son did, of himself, this Major Thomas Mack at Area 51. Bible Apocalypse talked to Thomas Mack's son. Thomas Mack died about 6 months after sending that email. Do with that information as you wish. But I remembered something. Thomas's Mac email had BBS in it. It was BBS now man at so on and so forth. I'll put it up on the screen here. And I just find that funny. And again, this has happened maybe 7 times in the Victor investigation, where something from the 70s correlates with the 90s. Some guy from the 90s backs up somebody from the 60s, said they don't know each other, they have the same stories, they have the same nomenclature. And to me, at 57, I can't call that BS. That to me is repeatable stories, repeating stories with the same information. And the fact that someone who claims to be the project manager or was the project manager of this underground facility that examined live extraterrestrial biological beings has it in his email, the abbreviation BBS, and we find a manual written in the 60s that says the facility where you take biological living creatures is BBS-01. Does that make any sense that sounds like a hoax? I really starting to believe, as bizarre as this investigation has gotten, that all of the threads, all of the puzzle pieces are really coming together. And it's all making sense. I mean, it's this facility S4 under S2 Alpha. You've got a guy putting it in his email. You've got it in a 1950s, 60s recovery manual. It's just too coincidental. And as all my police officer friends tell me, there are no coincidences. So, anyways, Jeff, this angel off the internet, has been sending me and doing research for me. And it's almost like a daily basis. This guy is digging up things that just defy belief of what he can come up with and what he can dig up. And his research ability just blows everything away, including anything that I have done. And I'm very low tech. I get out and knock on doors type thing. And he's just been a wonderful asset to the alien interview investigation. So I asked him to start researching BBS. And he gets really stymied. I mean, this guy is crack. He is a great researcher. And he is having a hard time finding what BBS is. He's going back to the 50s. He made a funny remark, and he's right. It's, probably this, old building that, has fallen off the radar and fallen off of being identified and whatnot. But here's, again, one investigation goes into another investigation. He says, in looking for the BBS, I came up with a pretty interesting bulletin about a special access program, or the advisory board that manages special access programs. So I'm going to put this on the screen, and I'm going to find this is a SAPOC membership. It's chaired by the Honorable John Deutsch of DepSec, which is Deputy Secretary of Defense, with the permanent members. Now, this is a oversight board for special access programs. It's pretty intense. With the members, the Honorable Paul Kaminsky, and I'm going to go down, Brigadier General Mike Kostelanik. Now, remember those two names, because you will find them. Let me get to it. Eric Davis in the Wilson memo. He asked Tom Wilson, who was USDAT, USDAT. Tom Wilson replies, Paul Kaminsky talked to both Paul and Mike Kostanek, and then it says a brigadier general. Eric Davis goes, Mike Kostanek? And Tom Wilson said, in Paul's office, Director of Special Operations, Undersecretary of Defense, Acquisition, Technology, Logistics, Organization. Says Mike Kostanek was also Director of Special Access Programs Coordination Officers. So we have two documents now. I credit Jeff off the internet. This guy's amazing. Who's got a document that looks extremely legit. It just looks like a regular bulletin passed amongst the Special Access Program Oversight Committee. And it's got two names that are on the Wilson Davis memo, which I think is explosive. And it certainly starts to lend more and more credence to the Wilson Davis memo, which we all think sits on top of maybe the top 5 pieces of data that have come out in the last 20 years to prove to some degree the government's curiosity and their involvement with the extraterrestrial phenomenon. But it gets even better than that. Last year also, I started to get emails from a retired scientist. She used to work for a department that did a lot of work for DARPA, and she worked with DARPA, but she wasn't directly employed by them. And she wrote an essay that she doesn't want published yet that I read, which was just absolutely explosive, that, DARPA is into all of these crazy, super high-tech experiments and programs, and they have successfully achieved a lot of progress and a lot of the things that they do. And instead of me blabbering about this more, why don't I take you to a set of emails, because I emailed her about this BBS facility, thinking maybe she would have heard of it in all of her high-tech research and her access to really high-tech, top-secret buildings. But she wrote back to me, John, you're welcome. Make any use of my material. I just prefer right now to keep my name confidential for family reasons and to stay under the radar. There's a lot of info about DARPA out there, but of course, it's always somewhat down level. If you look at the list of active projects the Wiki knows about, you see mostly it has to do with AI, robotics, biological, chemical, and genetic warfare. And she said it's hard to imagine that this is all merely intended to counter some sort of Russia or Chinese threat. So remember that. She said DARPA even has a YouTube channel, and if you can believe it, I suppose the idea is to attract bright young people, which I agree. She said there was also a woman trying to report on DARPA. Her name was Annie Jacobson, who I think is just a complete waste of time. Annie Jacobson is a dismissive, arrogant, I don't want to go any further because I fancy myself as a gentleman, is a complete frickin' twit. I contacted her about Area 51. She's the Area 51 expert, and told her I had explosive information. Told her I, ran for governor. She totally dismissed me. She's an ignorant, dismissive, arrogant human being that does not deserve your attention. And I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about that. I'm right because I've actually have communicated with her. Anyways, so she also writes that DARPA has people in almost every research institution. DARPA has people in almost every research institution and military facility in the country, if not the world. That's interesting. So DARPA is loaning out their talent to other foreign governments. But the stuff is so spread out and deeply buried that nobody can keep track of it, which is, of course, is just what they want. So let me get you to the email that really made me fall off my chair. She writes, DARPA has a major program doing CBW for the military and has a lot of branches. They are developing a wide range of hyper-deadly neurotoxins and pretty way out DNA-altering nanotech stuff to alter our DNA, where you would swallow it or they would inject it intravenously, I would think. You should look into DARPA. They're at the top of the research food chain. Working with them was scary. This is a retired PhD lady scientist who worked with DARPA, for DARPA, and other scientific agencies. I want to repeat that. They're the top of the research food chain, DARPA is. Working with them was scary. I'll tell you about it. Folks, are you getting ready for this? She goes on. Of course, they can't come right out and say their ultimate purpose is actually to repel a planetary invasion that is currently in progress. It's a PhD level scientist, retired, that used to work with DARPA. That's too serious of an issue to raise until we have some sort of solution to offer. And when that time comes, it will obviously have to be carefully controlled. Now, this is a woman who's telling us that DARPA's real mission, the real goal, is to eventually repel a planetary invasion. I really think I'm going to give her her nom de plume as Jill. That's certainly not her real name. Hopefully she will come out. I'm going to try and get her permission for me to publish her essay, which I think is really jaw-dropping. But when you have a kind, decent, scientist who worked with DARPA telling us that they're really there to be the firewall for some sort of planetary invasion that is currently in progress. So does that mean that planetary astronauts are on their way? I mean, it's so sci-fi that it gives me the chills. But I wanted to bring you all this information. I hope it was interesting, informative. Again, I am trying to hold to my word to the UFO community that I am like your stockbroker. When I get information, I do my best in a timely manner to give you the information. So thank you all of you for listening to this. God bless you. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.